I want you to just consider something that you have probably done, I mean, 1,000 times without ever really thinking about the mechanics behind it.
Oh, absolutely. We all do it.
Right. Like when you're incredibly nervous, pacing around before a big presentation, or maybe when you're just stepping out into the freezing cold, what is the very first thing you instinctively do with your hands?
You rub your palms together.
Exactly. You instinctively rub your palms together. Or think about when you're trying to comfort someone, or even yourself, really. When you hear sudden bad news, your hand almost involuntarily goes flat over your own chest.
Yeah, right over to heart.
And when a loved one is hurting, you don't just like hover near them. You place the center of your palm directly on their shoulder or, the middle of their back.
It's an entirely universal human instinct. I mean, long before we had the cognitive development to even articulate feelings of comfort or anxiety with language, our underlying biology basically dictates that we use the center of our hands.
Which is wild.
It is. We inherently treat our palms as if they are these built-in biological tools for generating heat, establishing comfort, or, initiating a process of healing.
But in Western culture, we typically just write this off as a psychological quirk, right?
It's like a behavioral reflex that makes us feel nice.
But then you step into the world of ancient traditional medicine and you cross-reference that with modern biophysics, and suddenly that simple reflex is not just a quirk at all.
Not even close.
We are looking at a physiological and quantum energetic mechanism that is honestly mind-blowing. It turns out ancient Chinese medicine and modern quantum physics both agree on this one crazy thing. There is a highly specialized, hidden sanctuary right in the center of your palm.
It's fascinating because it forces us to completely reevaluate the biological architecture of the human hand.
Right.
It's not just this, mechanical gripper made of bone and tendon. It is a highly sophisticated transmitter and receiver of biological information.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're going on a deep dive into something called the Laogong point. And we are pulling from a really fascinating stack of sources to do it.
The sourcing is great for this one.
We've got ancient traditional Chinese medicine texts, classical Shibashi Keigong manuals, but we are layering those right alongside modern neurobiological immune studies, plus cutting-edge research on cellular metabolism and clinical trials looking at quantum biofield energy.
And biophotons. It's just a brilliant intersection of fields.
Yeah, we are basically taking thousands of years of purely observational empirical wisdom from Eastern practitioners and looking at it through the microscopic lens of modern quantum physics and cellular biology.
Our mission here is to completely decode the biological, the psychological, and the quantum mechanics of palm-based energy exchange.
Which is a lot. But before we get into the quantum fields and, the mitochondria, we need to physically map the territory.
Always start with the anatomy.
Right. We need to find this point on our own bodies. So, for you listening, whether you're sitting in your car or at your desk right now, where exactly is the Laogong point?
Let's actually locate it right now. So if your hands are free, just make a loose fist with either hand.
Okay, doing.
Don't squeeze tightly, just curl your fingers inward naturally. Now look at where the tip of your middle finger touches the skin of your palm.
Right in the middle there.
Exactly. That exact spot, resting right between the second and third metacarpal bones, is the standard modern location for the Laogong point.
It feels like it's right in the deepest depression of the palm.
It is. And from a strictly anatomical and bioelectrical standpoint, that specific depression is incredibly sensitive.
Why is that?
Well, you have a massive, dense concentration of nerve endings right there, plus highly conductive fascial tissue and specific vascular structures.
So it's biologically primed.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Now, I should mention, if you dig into some older classical texts, they sometimes use a slightly different protocol.
No, really?
Yeah, they suggest finding the point where the tip of your ring finger touches the palm, which puts it slightly lower, down between the third and fourth metacarpal bones.
Wait, why the discrepancy? Did human anatomy literally change?
No, not anatomy, but the clinical focus just shifted over centuries. The ring finger location ties into slightly different energetic pathways.
Ah.
But today, the middle finger protocol, locating it between the second and third metacarpals, is the absolute clinical standard in modern acupuncture and medical Qigong.
Got it.
Ultimately, though, advanced practitioners don't view it as just a single pinpoint on a map. They view that entire central palmar region as a highly active, dynamic, energetic zone. It can actually expand or contract its field of influence based on what your nervous system is doing.
That makes a lot of sense. So we have the physical real estate pinned down. In the taxonomy of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM, this point is classified as pericardium 8 or PC8.
Yes, BC8.
But it's the translation of the classical name Laogong that really struck me in the sources. The way ancient physicians viewed this part of the anatomy is almost poetic.
There really is.
Lao translates to labor or heavy toil, and Gong translates to palace or sanctuary, so the palace of toil.
The linguistic juxtaposition there is just brilliant. It tells you exactly how the ancients viewed the human condition.
I kept thinking of it like a metaphor. I mean, imagine having this serene, high-security, soundproof meditation room built right in the dead center of a noisy, heavy machinery factory floor.
It's a great image.
Right. Our hands are the ultimate instruments of labor. For thousands of years, they have done the plowing, the building, the grasping. They do the hard, physical toil of human existence.
Absolutely.
But right in the very center of that calloused factory floor, there is this hidden palace, a sanctuary specifically designed for recovery, regulation, and energetic connection.
That analogy perfectly captures the dual nature of the anatomy. The hand works, but the center heals.
Yeah.
And to understand mechanically why that sanctuary exists, we really have to look at the meridian it sits on. You mentioned it as pericardium 8.
Right.
In Western medical anatomy, the pericardium is pretty straightforward. It's a double-walled fibrous sac. It physically encases the physical heart muscle, holds it in its proper place in the chest cavity, and contains a bit of fluid to lubricate the heart's pumping movements.
So it's basically structural.
Right, purely structural.
Yeah.
But in traditional Chinese medicine, the concept of the pericardium is vastly more expansive. It's conceptualized as the heart master or the heart protector.
Because in TCM, the heart is considered the emperor of all the body's organ systems, right? It houses the spirit or the Shen.
Exactly. The heart is the emperor, and the emperor must remain completely undisturbed to govern the body effectively.
Makes sense.
So the pericardium acts as this protective, energetic envelope. Its job is to shield the physical heart and the mind from exogenous pathogens, meaning external illnesses, viruses, environmental extremes.
Like a literal shield.
Exactly.
Mm.
But crucially, it also shields the heart from massive internal emotional upheaval, trauma, grief, extreme anxiety. The pericardium basically takes the hit, so the heart doesn't have to.
Wow.
And as the 8th point on this protective meridian channel, the Laogong point is designated as a fire point. It is used clinically specifically to clear what TCM calls heart fire.
I want to pause on that term heart fire because that just sounds like a metaphor for feeling stressed out. But the sources are clear that this manifests in very visceral, physical ways.
Oh, it's intensely physical. When a practitioner talks about excess heart fire or heat trapped in the pericardium system, they are looking at clear biological symptoms.
Like what?
Well, it's associated with painful mouth and tongue ulcers. You actually see this a lot in children who are chronically overstimulated. It causes foul breath, ceaseless nosebleeds, and what classical texts vividly call reckless bleeding.
Reckless bleeding, that sounds terrifying.
It is. Think blood in the urine, uncontrollably heavy menstrual cycles, or even vomiting blood in extreme cases.
Good Lord.
In TCM theory, the heat essentially boils the blood right out of the vessels. Mentally, heart fire is linked to severe agitation, mania, clinical insomnia, and palpitations.
So the system is just completely redlining.
Exactly. When the heart is emotionally drained or physically overheated by chronic stress, stimulating the Laogong point in the palm is meant to literally cool that fire.
It regulates the system.
Right, acting as a direct release valve for the palace of anxiety.
Okay, so if we take that ancient framework, the idea of a release valve for a stressed, overheated emperor, and we drag it directly into a modern neurobiology lab, what actually happens?
This is where it gets fun.
Because this is where the sources start getting really granular. We know where the point is, and we know what ancient medicine claims it does. But how does pressing your thumb into the center of your palm actually change the chemistry of your bloodstream?
The biological bridge between the concept of a meridian and modern physiology is the autonomic nervous system. And more specifically, we need to look at heart rate variability, or HRV.
For anyone listening who doesn't obsessively track this on their smartwatch, HRV is the variation in the time intervals between your consecutive heartbeats.
Yes.
You actually don't want your heart beating like a perfectly rigid metronome, right? A higher variability means your nervous system is adaptable, relaxed, and resilient.
That's a great summary. A high HRV means your body can quickly switch gears between stress and relaxation.
Okay.
When researchers put subjects in a lab and study the direct acupressure stimulation of PC8, the Laogong point, They document a profound modulation of the autonomic nervous system.
Just from pressing the palm.
Yes, activating this dense nerve cluster in the palm significantly and measurably enhances parasympathetic activity.
Which is the rest and digest side of a nervous system as opposed to the fight or flight sympathetic side.
Correct. And that parasympathetic response is governed largely by the vagus nerve.
The famous vagus nerve.
It's the very one. It's this massive cranial nerve wandering from your brainstem all the way down through your chest and into your abdomen, touching almost every major organ.
So how does the palm connect to it?
When you stimulate Laogong, the afferent nerve signals travel up your arm into your central nervous system and effectively signal the vagus nerve to apply the physiological brake.
I saw some very specific acronyms in the data regarding this. The sources point to studies showing that activating PC8 increases high frequency, or HF, power, and RMSSD. Can you break down what those actually mean for us?
Absolutely. When we measure HRV, we break the heartbeat frequencies into different bands. High-frequency power is universally recognized as a direct reflection of vagal tone, basically how strongly the vagus nerve is operating.
Okay.
RMSSD stands for the root mean square of successive differences.
Which is a mouthful.
It really is. It's a statistical calculation of the time differences between heartbeats. A higher RMSSD number basically means a healthier, more robust parasympathetic nervous system. And the studies show that stimulating Laogong drives both of these numbers up.
So the heart physically becomes more resilient.
Yes, and while it's doing that, it's simultaneously lowering something called the physical stress index, or PSI. But even more impressively, blood draws show it physically decreases plasma cortisol levels in the bloodstream.
Lowering cortisol is huge. I mean, cortisol is the body's primary alarm bell stress hormone.
And prolonged elevation of cortisol is catastrophic. Degrades immune function, spikes systemic inflammation, causes weight retention, and creates general biological chaos.
Yeah, it's brutal.
By using targeted acupressure on the palace of toil, you aren't just giving yourself a nice hand massage. You are actively mitigating the hypothalamus-pituitary-adrenal axis stress response. You are forcing the body to stop pumping cortisol.
But this is where the sources took a hard left turn, and honestly where I had to read the material like 3 times.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
We are not just talking about nerve signals traveling from the hand to the brain to slow the heart rate. We are talking about deep foundational cellular metabolism.
Yes, we are.
The research connects Laogong activation directly to mitochondrial ATP production.
Adenosine triphosphate. ATP is the fundamental energy currency of every single living cell in your body. If a cell doesn't have ATP, it dies.
Right. And here is where I have to play the skeptic, because I know you listening are wondering the exact same thing. I read that part of the source material, and my immediate reaction was, wait, how does rubbing my hands together or pressing my thumb into my palm physically fix a microscopic mitochondrion inside a liver cell or a muscle cell?
It's a massive leap.
Walk me through the actual physical route. How do we leap from a palm massage to cellular respiration?
It's the most critical question we can ask. To understand the how, we have to look at the metabolism-immune-neuro interaction model. Let's bridge the two paradigms here.
Okay.
In traditional terms, an acupuncturist might look at a patient and diagnose them with qi stagnation.
Meaning the energy is stuck.
Right. The energy is stuck, the body feels heavy, the person is chronically exhausted, their digestion is terrible.
Yep.
In modern allopathic terms, that exact clinical picture almost perfectly mirrors systemic cellular energy depletion coupled with a massive spike in inflammatory markers.
So qi stagnation essentially equals metabolic depletion plus inflammation.
Exactly. Let's look at a concrete example. Post-exertional malaise, or PM.
You see this in chronic fatigue syndrome.
Right.
And long COVID.
And severe burnout. It's a state of profound, crushing physical exhaustion where the body simply cannot recover from even minor effort.
It's awful.
What is happening down at the microscopic cellular level during PM is a marked, sustained decline in ATP synthesis. The mitochondria, the little power plants inside the cells, are damaged by oxidative stress, and they cannot produce enough energy to meet the body's demands.
So when cells drop in energy, they don't just quietly go to sleep.
No, they panic.
Right.
When your cells sense this massive drop in available ATP, it triggers a survival mechanism. They activate a highly specific cellular stress response pathway known as the AMPK-mTOR pathway.
Let's decode that, because AMPK-mTOR sounds intimidating.
It does. Think of AMPK as an enzyme that acts like a cellular fuel gauge. When ATP is low, AMPK turns on.
Okay.
Now, mTOR, which stands for the mechanistic target of rapamycin, is a protein that drives cell growth and protein synthesis. Normally, NPR is great. It builds muscle and repairs tissue.
But it takes energy.
Exactly. It requires a ton of energy. So when the fuel gauge, AMPK, senses an energy crisis, it slams the brakes on MTR.
I think of it like a city's power grid browning out. If the main power plant is failing, the city manager flips a switch to immediately shut down all the factories and neon signs just to save whatever juice is left for the hospital.
That is a perfect analogy. The cell shuts down non-essential metabolic processes. It stops building proteins.
Wow.
Now, this emergency brake mechanism is meant to be temporary, but if the stress is chronic, the pathway gets stuck in the on position.
And what happens then?
This chronic activation disrupts calcium regulation in your neurons, which severely impairs how your brain sends electrical signals. You get massive brain fog, heavy muscle weakness, delayed recovery, lingering pain.
So it's a vicious cycle.
Completely. A self-perpetuating cycle of insufficient energy leading to systemic inflammatory stress.
So how does the palm interrupt a microscopic emergency shutdown protocol?
Let's trace the signal. When you stimulate the Laogong point, you initiate that vagal parasympathetic shift we just discussed.
A brake pedal.
Right. The physical nerve endings in the hand send an electrical impulse up to the brainstem. The brainstem tells the vagus nerve to release acetylcholine, which drops the heart rate and halts the adrenal glands from pumping cortisol.
Lowering the systemic stress response.
Exactly. And by doing that, you drastically change the chemical environment that your cells are floating in. You're reducing the inflammatory cytokine load that is actively causing oxidative damage to your mitochondria.
Plus, our understanding of meridian pathways is evolving, isn't it? The sources mention they aren't just imaginary lines on a chart.
Far from it. We increasingly understand meridians not as hollow tubes, but as highly conductive fascial networks.
Fascia, like the connective tissue.
Yes, the continuous web of connective tissue that surrounds every muscle and organ. It's largely made of collagen, and collagen happens to have piezoelectric and semiconductor properties.
Meaning it conducts electricity.
It conducts bioelectrical and biochemical communication at lightning speed. By managing the electrical input through the dense fascial nodes in the palms, you are modulating this entire neuroimmune network.
Oh, I see where this is going.
You calm the nervous system, which cuts the inflammatory cytokines, which relieves the pressure on the cellular stress pathway. The city manager realizes the crisis is over, turns off the AMPK alarm, and allows the mitochondria to gradually restore their normal ATP production rate.
So, to be clear, it's not that my thumb is physically reaching in and squeezing a mitochondrion to force it to make more ATP.
Right.
It's that the specific stimulation of this incredibly dense electrically conductive node, the palace of toil, sends a cascading systemic signal of safety throughout the entire biological network. It tells the cellular grid to stand down from red alert.
You've nailed it. You are shifting the entire biological organism from a state of chaotic, inflammatory defense back into a state of ordered repair and cellular respiration.
And that concept shifting from chaotic defense into ordered repair is actually the perfect transition into what is undeniably the most mind-bending part of our deep dive today.
Buckle up.
Because up until this point, we have kept everything safely contained within the physical boundaries of the human skin. We've talked about nerves, hormones, fascia, and cells. But traditional healing practices insist that energy, what they call ki absolutely, does not stop at the epidermis.
No, it doesn't. This is where we leave classical biology and enter the realm of quantum mechanics and the biofield.
Yeah.
It challenges the entire Newtonian mechanistic view of the body as just an isolated machine made of distinct parts.
I will admit, when I first saw the stack of sources heading into quantum physics, I thought, are we going too far down the rabbit hole here?
Huh.
I worried it was going to get too pseudoscientific.
It's a common concern.
But the scientific rigor in these papers is staggering. To even approach how energy leaves or enters the body through the Laogong point, we have to look at Peng Ming.
Dr. Peng Ming, he's an incredibly important figure. He is an allopathically trained physician who also mastered traditional Chinese medicine, and he is the founder of Jineng Qigong.
Right.
He developed something called the three levels theory of matter.
What are those three levels?
Well, Peng Ming proposes that matter in the universe exists in three distinct states. The first is physical, particulate matter with mass. This is the stuff we can touch, see, and weigh like a rock or a human bone.
Okay, the tangible stuff.
Right. The second level is energy. These are the invisible fields we can measure with instruments like electromagnetism, heat, or gravity.
Makes sense.
But the third level, which is the foundational concept in advanced Qigong, is what he calls information energy. In this state, energy and information are fundamentally equivalent and indistinguishable.
Information energy equivalence. That sounds heavy. What does it actually mean in practice?
It basically suggests that human consciousness, or therapeutic intent, the deeply focused mind of a practitioner, isn't just a fleeting abstract thought localized in the brain.
What is it then?
It is an objective physical reality. It is a form of highly coherent information energy that has the capacity to interact with and alter physical matter.
This aligns really closely with the work of Albert Szent-Györgyi, doesn't it? He won the Nobel Prize for discovering vitamin C, but he's also widely considered one of the founding fathers of quantum biology.
He's a legend in the field.
The sources quoted him stating that in every single medical tradition before our modern allopathic one, healing was accomplished by moving energy.
Szent-Györgyi was brilliant because he refused to see biology as just clumsy chemical reactions. He looked at how subatomic quantum effects occur within the living, wet, messy environment of the human body.
Which brings us directly to the bioorthophonic concept and quantum electrodynamics, or QED.
Let's break those down.
Yes, what is quantum electrodynamics in the context of the human body?
In physics, QED is the overarching theory that describes how electrically charged particles, like the electrons in your cells, interact with photons. And photons are the fundamental force particles of light.
Okay, so light and electrons interacting.
Exactly. In the framework of quantum biology, the human body isn't just a bag of random chemicals sloshing around. It is a living, highly organized, crystalline matrix.
Crystalline.
Yes. The connective tissue, the water molecules structured inside the cells, the double helix of your DNA, they all possess crystalline semiconductor properties. They are designed to conduct energy and information. And the primary courier of this information is biophotons.
Biophotons. We are talking about literal, measurable light emitted by living cells.
Yes. Ultra-weak photon emissions.
Yeah.
Every living thing emits them. The research shows that healthy, thriving cells emit highly coherent, organized biophotons. It's like a laser beam.
And when they aren't healthy?
When a cell becomes diseased, stressed, or cancerous, that light emission becomes chaotic, scattered, and dispersed. It loses its coherence. The bioorthophotonic concept suggests that healing energy, like the external qi emitted from a trained Qigong practitioner's palm, is essentially a massive transfer of coherent quantum information.
So the practitioner is emitting light.
Basically, the practitioner emits a coherent biomagnetic field that interacts with the chaotic biophoton emissions of the sick tissues, providing a template for them to realign and restore order.
So when we are talking about energy exchange through the Laogong point, we are literally talking about the transmission of biophotons' coherent light acting as biological software to reprogram sick cells.
That's a great way to phrase it, biological software.
And to prove that this isn't just theoretical philosophy, we have to talk about the Lila quantum text study, because I read this, and honestly, my BS meter went off immediately. I really had to scrutinize the methodology here.
It's a study that forces you to rethink your assumptions, for sure.
Okay, here's what they did. The researchers wanted to see if a remote quantum energy field could actually influence cellular ATP production in human cells. They used a rigorous, double-blind, randomized setup.
Very standard.
They used two entirely different types of cells. First, A549 human lung carcinoma cells. Second, immortalized human diploid fibroblasts, or HDFs.
Which is important. Using two metabolically distinct cell lines as a crucial control, it ensures that any effect they observe isn't just a random fluke specific to one type of mutated cell.
Right, so they take these petri dishes of cells and they expose them to a coherent quantum field generated by their technology. But here's the kicker. They didn't just place the cells next to the device on a lab bench.
No, they did not.
They applied the field remotely from over 500 miles away.
Over 500 miles away. And they shielded the local environment to ensure there was no standard electromagnetic interference. This is a direct test of the core principle of quantum non-locality.
And the results were insane. The treated cells, the ones exposed to this non-local quantum field from 500 miles away, showed a transient but highly statistically significant increase in ATP production compared to the control group.
The numbers are wild.
In the A549 lung cells, the ATP levels jumped by 20 to 29%.
A 20 to 29% increase in literal cellular energy currency. And the data showed this occurred in both glucose-rich and glucose-deprived environments.
Meaning what?
That means the quantum field wasn't just triggering one specific localized metabolic pathway. It was creating a systemic, generalized enhancement of the cell's fundamental bioenergetics.
Okay, I have to push back here for everyone listening. A 29% increase in ATP is massive. But how?
The million-dollar question.
How does a field generated 500 miles away change the mitochondrial output inside a lung cell sitting in a lab incubator? Walk me through how that isn't just statistical noise or a placebo effect. I mean, obviously, a petri dish doesn't experience placebo. But what is the physical mechanism bridging that 500-mile gap?
The prevailing hypothesis in modern quantum biology to explain this non-local effect is quantum entanglement.
Entanglement.
Right. In quantum mechanics, when two particles or systems become entangled, their quantum states merge. The state of one particle instantly and undeniably influences the state of the other, completely regardless of the physical distance separating them.
Distance means nothing.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if they are 2 inches apart or on opposite sides of the galaxy. Einstein struggled with this. He famously derided it as spooky action at a distance. But it has been proven repeatedly in physics labs.
So if we apply entanglement to human healing, we're looking at something the sources refer to as the PPR entanglement model. What does PPR stand for?
Patient-practitioner remedy entanglement. When a practitioner focuses their therapeutic intent, what TCM calls their YI, and specifically directs it toward a patient, they're creating a state of quantum resonance.
So the two people link up.
Yes, the practitioner's biofield and the patient's biofield essentially couple together. They become a single, entangled quantum system. Because they are entangled, the communication of information energy between their states is instantaneous and bypasses the constraints of linear space.
I found myself pacing around trying to visualize this, and the best analogy I could come up with was two tuning forks.
Oh, I like that.
Imagine you have two identical tuning forks calibrated to the exact same frequency, say an A note. You strike the first one, and it starts to hum vibrantly.
Right.
If you bring the second tuning fork close, it will naturally start to vibrate and hum as well. Not because they are connected by a wire, and not because the first one is blowing air on the second one, but because they share a fundamental resonance space.
Exactly.
In quantum entanglement, physical distance simply stops being a limiting factor. The resonance space is non-local.
That tuning fork analogy is perfect. And it elegantly explains why distance healing or external key therapy, what is traditionally known as Y-key Liao Fei Kan, produce measurable biological effects in clinical trials.
Because they share that space.
Right. The practitioner's coherent, highly structured biofield acts as the struck tuning fork. It provides the energetic blueprint. The patient's chaotic, diseased biofield is the second tuning fork.
Which is waiting to be tuned.
Exactly. Because they are entangled by intent, the patient's field begins to resonate with the practitioner's coherence. It restores order to the biophoton emissions, which in turn regulates the cellular pathways, which, as we see in the Leela study, literally commands the mitochondria to boost ATP production.
And to prove it's not just a human placebo or human cells, there was another study in our sources involving boar sperm.
Yes.
Which I know sounds incredibly bizarre to say out loud, but it perfectly illustrates how the type of intent changes the biological outcome.
It is a classic, highly cited study in the field of external key research.
So the researchers took boar sperm and exposed it to a Qigong practitioner emitting external qi through their Laogong points. When the practitioner used facilitating intent, meaning their conscious intention was to heal, nourish, and promote growth, the respiration rate of the sperm increased by 12.5 to 13%, and the actual DNA synthesis inside the cells increased by 15%.
A clear, measurable biological enhancement.
But then they did the reverse. When the practitioner used inhibiting intent, the mental intention to suppress or destroy cell growth dropped by 6%, and the cellular respiration rate plummeted by an astonishing 45 to 48%.
And this happened in just a matter of minutes.
That's crazy.
It is. The exact same anatomical energy gate, the Laogong point in the center of the palm, was used as the physical transmitter in both cases. But the information carried by the biophotons was entirely dictated by the conscious intent of the practitioner's mind.
So the intent literally programmed the energy.
It perfectly demonstrates Pang Ming's theory of information-energy equivalence. The mind shapes the information alters the energy field, and the energy field alters the physical matter of the cells.
Wow. So what does this all mean for us functionally? We have established that the human body is essentially acting as a sophisticated quantum biocomputer, capable of transmitting and receiving highly coherent information through the hands. But a computer needs hardware. It needs circuits, grounding wires, and power sources. How do the major energy gates connect to form a balanced, safe internal system? We know the palms, the Laogong points, are the primary transmitters and receivers, but they can't be acting alone. A transmitter without a ground wire blows a fuse.
Precisely. The Laogong points are just one node in a highly integrated network. To understand the full biological circuit, we need to contrast the palms with the two other major energetic gates in the body.
Which are?
The Yongquan points on the feet and the Baihui point on the head.
Let's start from the ground up. The feet. The Yongquan point. Where is it and what does it do?
Yongquan translates to the bubbling spring or the gushing spring. Anatomically, it is classified as kidney 1 or K1 in the meridian system.
Okay.
It is located directly on the sole of the foot, right in the central depression that forms when you curl your toes inward. If Laogong is about dynamic exchange, labor, and managing the intense fire of the heart, Yongquan is about deep, rooting stability. It connects the biological system directly to earth energy.
So if Laogong is the transmitter or receiver antenna, Yongquan is the ground wire plunged into the dirt.
That's the exact function. Its primary energetic role is to nourish the kidney system, strengthen the lower back, and critically pull excess chaotic energy down away from the head and chest.
Interesting.
Think about the metabolic markers. Clinically, while Laogong is stimulated to handle acute anxiety and heart palpitations, Yongquan is stimulated to pull energy downward to lower hypertension, treat severe insomnia, and resolve vertigo or dizziness. It grounds the electrical system.
And then we have the opposite end of the spectrum, the antenna at the very top, the Baihui point.
Right. Baihu is governing vessel 20, or GV20, the 100 convergences. It is located at the very crown of the head, right at the apex of the skull.
The highest point.
Exactly. If Yongquan connects you to the dense, stabilizing earth, Baihui connects you to the expansive, refined energy of heaven. It is the intersection where all the body's yang energy channels meet. Stimulating Baihui is used to clear the senses, elevate consciousness, lift depression, and calm the spirit.
So you have earth energy anchoring you below, heaven energy illuminating you above, and the human being situated in the middle, managing the flow and exchange of this energy through the palms.
That's the architecture.
Our sources used a really helpful mechanical metaphor for this interaction, the big energy pump.
The big energy pump is a foundational visualization in almost all internal martial arts and Qigong practices. It views the body as a continuous systemic circuit.
How does it work?
When you inhale, you use your intent to visualize drawing dense earth qi up through the Yongquan gates in the soles of your feet, while simultaneously drawing refined heaven qi down through the Baihui gate at your crown.
So pulling from both ends.
Right. You're pulling energy from both poles into your centers, specifically the lower abdomen. Then, as you exhale, you push that combined internally processed energy out through the Laogong gates in your palms.
It is a continuous dynamic circuit, in through the vertical poles, out through the horizontal limbs. What really struck me in reading this is how closely this theoretical energetic flow parallels actual physical blood circulation.
The physiological parallels are profound and undeniable. In traditional Chinese medical theory, there is a famous maxim: qi is the commander of blood, and blood is the mother of qi.
Meaning they go together.
Exactly. Where the mind goes, the qi follows, and where the qi goes, the blood flows. They are inextricably linked.
So how does the pump visualization affect the blood?
When you perform the big energy pump visualization, you aren't just thinking about it, you are coordinating it with deep, slow abdominal breathing.
The physical breath.
Yes. This physical action, the slow rhythmic expansion and contraction of the diaphragm muscle, massages your internal organs. It stimulates the vagus nerve, which we know dilates the blood vessels.
Right.
But mechanically, deep diaphragmatic breathing creates a pressure gradient in the thorax that physically pumps venous blood from the lower extremities back up toward the heart.
So while you are theoretically visualizing pulling earth qi up from your feet, you are biologically facilitating the return of physical blood from your legs, which eases the mechanical workload on the physical pericardium sac and the heart muscle.
Exactly.
The foot gates and palm gates are collectively, simultaneously supporting systemic metabolic balance.
The grounding focus at Yongquan provides the stable physiological platform. It ensures that blood pressure doesn't spike and nervous energy doesn't rush uncontrollably to the head. Meanwhile, the outward transmission focus at Laogong ensures the energy and blood don't stagnate in the chest cavity. It is a perfectly balanced bioelectrical and hemodynamic circuit.
Which is an incredible transition into the practical application part of this, because taking all of this heavy theory, the vagus nerve, the biophotons, the energy circuits, the entanglement, and actually feeling it yourself is where the magic happens.
It really is.
How do we take this out of the theoretical textbook and put it literally into our own hands?
The very first step for any practitioner is learning how to sensitize the palms to actually perceive this energy. You have to wake up the Laogong points. And the texts outline 3 specific physical indicators that tell you the energy is flowing correctly.
If you're listening and trying this at home right now, what should they actually be feeling for?
First, you will almost certainly feel a distinct thermal warmth or a strong tingling sensation right in the central depression of the palm. It feels almost like static electricity.
Okay, warmth and tingling.
Second, as you continue to practice, you will begin to feel a magnetic-like resistance or a subtle pressure between your hands, as if they are slightly repelling or attracting each other.
Like trying to push 2 magnets together.
Exactly like that. And third, you might feel a rhythmic, physical pulsing sensation directly at the Laogong point, which is the physical synchronization of your local blood flow with the qi.
Okay, let's give everyone a step-by-step guide. How does a complete beginner activate their palm energy safely and effectively right now?
We always start with kinetic and thermal generation. Simply hold your hands in front of your chest and rub your palms together vigorously.
Like we talked about at the very beginning.
Right. You want to generate actual friction and heat. This physical action increases local capillary blood flow and massively stimulates the dense fascial and nerve endings in the center of the palm. Keep rubbing for maybe 10 to 20 seconds until your palms feel genuinely warm.
Okay, so say my hands are warm and tingling. Now what do I do?
Now we use a foundational Qigong sensory technique called the accordion or bellows exercise.
Yeah.
Bring your warmed palms so they are facing each other in front of your chest, almost touching, maybe half an inch apart.
Okay.
Close your eyes and place your entire mental focus on the empty space between your hands. Very, very slowly, move your hands apart until they are about 12 inches or 30 centimeters away from each other.
Moving smoothly with the least amount of muscular effort possible, right?
Exactly. Keep the shoulders completely relaxed.
Roll.
Once they're about a foot apart, slowly compress the hands back together. Imagine you are compressing a balloon or squeezing the air between them like playing an accordion.
Hence the name.
Right. Move them slowly back and forth, expanding and compressing. As you do this rhythmic movement, maintain your absolute focus on the Laogong points. Over a few minutes, that initial thermal friction heat will start to transform.
Into what?
You will begin to feel the sensation of a localized biomagnetic field. You will physically feel that resistance, that spongy pressure, as the bioelectrical fields of your 2 palms interact with one another.
It is such a wild paradigm-shifting feeling the first time you actually experience it. It fundamentally changes how you perceive the boundaries of your own physical body.
It really does.
Once someone can feel that energy consistently, how do they integrate it into a daily routine to actually improve their health? Our sources highlighted a specific, highly accessible sequence called the Shibashi Taiji Qigong.
Yes. Shibashi is a brilliant foundational system. It was developed in the 1970s by Professor Lin Husheng. It consists of 18 flowing, continuous movements that are designed specifically to synchronize with abdominal breathing and naturally activate these major energy gates we've been discussing.
Let's talk about the breathing first, because that seems to be the engine for the whole system. How does abdominal breathing, what Qigong calls Dantian breathing, physically influence the opening of these gates?
The lower dantian is considered your energetic center of gravity, located internally about 2 inches below your navel. When you breathe deeply into your abdomen, allowing the belly to expand on the inhale and retract on the exhale, you are fully engaging the diaphragm muscle.
Down in the belly.
Right. This deep rhythmic movement lowers your physical center of gravity. It massages the vagus nerve, which we know shifts the autonomic nervous system into parasympathetic dominance.
The brake pedal again.
Exactly. This relaxation response physically dilates the blood vessels and releases tension in the fascial pathways. It turns the body from a tense, restricted, closed system into a relaxed, highly conductive, open conduit.
So the breath provides the power, and the movements steer the energy. Let's break down the mechanics of a few of these specific Shibashi movements. The first key movement is called wave hands.
In wave hands, you stand with knees slightly bent. You slowly raise your arms straight out in front of you, up to shoulder height, and then gently lower them back down. But the physical movement is secondary to the internal focus.
What should the focus be?
As you inhale and raise your arms, your mental focus is on drawing energy from the earth up through the Yongquan gates in your feet. Your hands remain light, wrists relaxed, but your awareness is anchored on the Laogong points.
And as you exhale and lower your hands.
As you exhale, your hands descend past your chest and down to your upper thighs. During the descent, you intentionally focus your Laogong points downwards. You're essentially using the palms to deposit that processed chi downward into the stomach meridian, which runs down the front of the body and legs.
Why the stomach meridian?
In five-element theory, this specific downward energetic action helps calm and settle agitated liver qi, which is biologically associated with reducing feelings of anger, frustration, and systemic stress.
I love how specific the mechanics are. You aren't just waving your arms, you are directing traffic inside your body.
That's a great way to put it.
The next movement in the sequence is expand the chest.
Here, you bring your arms up in front of you, and then on the inhale, you open your arms wide to the sides, physically expanding the chest cavity, before bringing them back together on the exhale.
Okay.
Structurally, this movement physically stretches and strengthens the heart and lungs, increasing oxygen capacity. Energetically, the key is keeping the Laogong points facing each other across the space of your chest as you open and close your arms.
And the classical manuals mention a very specific anatomical detail here. Keeping the wrists slightly bent. Why does a bent wrist matter?
Bending the wrists slightly at an angle ensures that the Laogong gates are directly aligned, pointing squarely at each other across the chest. It creates an unbroken, closed, energetic circuit. You can visualize a stretchable string of light or energy connecting the two palms.
Ah, I see.
Bending the wrists also slightly tensions the fascia in the forearm, which stimulates the pericardial meridian. This builds the key intensity between the hands while simultaneously opening the meridian pathways in the chest, which is highly effective for releasing emotional depression and stagnant chest energy.
And the third movement we should detail is called paint the rainbow. This one sounds beautiful, but the geometric alignment is just fascinating.
It is a highly effective movement for aligning the body's three major gates. You extend your arms up and over your head, and you gently shift your weight from one leg to the other. As you shift your weight and lean slightly to the left, your right arm curves directly over the crown of your head.
So the Laogong point of your right hand is pointing straight down, aimed perfectly at the Baihui point on the top of your head.
Precisely aligned. As you inhale and shift into the posture, you gather qi in that extended Laogong point. Then, as the palm hovers over the crown, you use your intent to deposit that gathered qi directly downward into the Baihu gate.
Connecting the two antennas?
Exactly. This fluid movement links the activation of the palm directly to the opening of the crown chakra. Clinically, it's used to balance the body's vertical energy, strengthen the stomach, aid digestion, and clear mental fog. It is a perfect demonstration of how the body is not a collection of isolated parts. It is a unified, highly communicative, energetic system.
It is a phenomenal, gentle routine for self-regulation and maintaining your own health. But what happens when we want to move beyond self-regulation?
Things get a lot more complicated.
What happens when a practitioner wants to use this cultivated energy to actually help someone else? That brings us to the most complex part of our discussion. Healing others, the psychological impacts, and the crucial safety protocols.
This is where we cross from standard Qigong into the advanced clinical practice known as Wai Qi Liao Fa, or external Qi healing.
Right. Using the Laogong point to consciously emit coherent energy into a patient to remove pathogens, break up stagnation, or restore bioelectrical balance. And this is where I had a really pressing question while reviewing the material.
I think I know what you're going to ask.
If I am sending energy to a sick friend, whether I have my hands physically on their shoulders or I am doing this remotely across the country using entanglement, how do I protect them from my own stress? If I had a bad day at work, am I sending them my cortisol?
That is a very real concern.
And equally important, how do I protect myself from absorbing their illness or depleting my own energy reserves?
It is the single most critical question in energy medicine. Without strict safety protocols, energetic exchange between two people can be highly detrimental to both parties.
So what are the protocols? How does a practitioner stay safe?
First and foremost, you must never, ever use your own foundational life force to heal someone else. In traditional Chinese medicine, this foundational reserve is called your jing, your deep ancestral essence stored in the kidneys.
Okay, so keep the jinx safe.
Right. If you simply push energy out of your hands through sheer ego and willpower, you will drain your own internal battery. This leads to profound physical exhaustion, compromised immunity, and eventual illness for the practitioner.
So if I'm not using my own energy, where does the energy come from?
You must learn to act as a conduit, often visualized as a hollow bamboo tube. The practitioner uses their lower dantian, the lower abdomen, as an internal battery and a pump, but they are continuously drawing the actual energy from the external universe.
The big energy pump again.
Exactly. You draw earth ki up and heaven chi down. You pool it in the dantian, refine it, and then use your mind, your yi to, guide it up the spine, out through the shoulders and arms, and out the Laogong gates. You're channeling limitless universal information energy, not depleting your own finite vital reserves.
Uh, and how do you maintain boundaries against their illness? If they are emitting chaotic biophotons or turbid chi, how do you keep that out of your system?
This is where the Yongquan points on the feet become your absolute lifeline. During high-intensity energy transfer, a practitioner must remain deeply and consciously rooted to the earth through the soles of their feet. Yes, if you encounter a pathogen, emotional trauma, or turbid energy from the patient's biofield, your grounding allows that chaotic energy to pass through you and be discharged harmlessly down into the earth rather than lodging in your own organs.
It is exactly like grounding a high-voltage electrical circuit in a house to prevent a power surge from blowing out the internal wiring.
It's the exact same physics principle applied to biology. And internally, you have a second layer of defense. The pericardium acts as your physiological and energetic shock absorber.
The heart protector steps in.
Yes, sending massive amounts of bioelectrical energy through the arms and out the hands could theoretically overwhelm the physical heart muscle. The pericardium meridian absorbs, buffers, and modulates that high-intensity flow.
So it takes the brunt of it.
It protects the emperor, the heart itself, from the bioelectrical surge. It ensures the heart's rhythm remains stable, HRV remains high, and blood pressure stays regulated, even while the practitioner's hands are emitting powerful electromagnetic fields.
That is an incredible biological failsafe. But the sources also dive deep into what happens when this entire system goes wrong, and they don't shy away from the severe psychological risks. We have to talk impartially about the phenomenon of Qigong deviation syndrome.
It's a very serious topic.
What is traditionally called zuhu, which translates to catching fire or over-meditation.
It is a highly recognized and extensively documented clinical reality. In fact, it is specifically listed as an official diagnostic category in the Chinese classification of mental disorders, the CCMD-2.
What exactly does it look like? Because the symptoms described in the clinical psychiatric papers from the Shanghai Mental Health Center are intense and frankly terrifying.
When someone practices advanced energy work incorrectly, usually by obsessing over intense visualizations without proper physical grounding or forcing energy through the body without the guidance of a qualified teacher, they can experience severe adverse psychophysiological reactions.
Like what?
The most common initial complaint is the visceral sensation of qi rushing uncontrollably up the spine to the head and becoming permanently trapped there.
Because they haven't learned to use the Yongquan foot points to act as a release valve and bring the energy back down.
Precisely. The bioelectrical energy stagnates in the upper cranial centers. This hyperarousal of the nervous system can lead to extreme anxiety, auditory and visual hallucinations, pseudo-hallucinations, and severe paranoid or dissociative states.
That is horrifying.
The clinical papers from Shanghai describe patients experiencing bizarre distortions in their body image. They feel as though their limbs are expanding or they are continuously floating or filing. They lose their cognition of the space-time continuum.
Wow.
In the most extreme cases, the energetic overload triggers symptoms that perfectly mimic schizophreniform disorders.
The sources make it very clear. The biofield is not something to play with recklessly. Regulating systemic qi, maintaining groundedness through the sheet, and progressing slowly and naturally are non-negotiable for preventing these adverse reactions. The mind and the body are deeply, inextricably linked at a quantum level.
Which is why the Laogong point is ultimately a lesson in profound biological balance. It is the palace of toil. It reminds us that we possess the capacity for great labor, exertion, and outward energetic projection. But we also have an innate, non-negotiable need for an internal sanctuary of peace and grounding.
Okay, let's bring this massive journey all together. We have covered an immense amount of ground on this deep dive.
We really have.
We started with the ancient TCM concept of the Palace of Toil, a sanctuary hidden right in the center of the working hand, protected by the pericardium meridian. We traced how activating that single cluster of nerves modulates the vagus nerve, drops systemic cortisol, and tells the cellular AMPK-mTOR emergency pathway to stop panicking and allow the mitochondria to start producing ATP again.
And then we journeyed from the cell into the quantum realm, examining how our connective tissue acts as a semiconductor for biophotons. We look at the staggering biophysical evidence of non-local energy exchange, how a coherent quantum field can boost cell metabolism from 500 miles away through the mechanics of quantum entanglement.
We mapped the internal biological circuit, balancing the transmitting fire of the Laogong palms with the deep earth grounding of the Yunquan feet and the elevation of the Baihu crown. We walk through step-by-step practical methods to feel this energy, from rubbing your hands together to the fluid, breath-coordinated movements of the Shibashi sequence.
A lot of practical tools today.
And finally, we looked at the profound responsibility, the boundary setting, and the psychological safety protocols required when using this energy to heal others.
It is a profound testament to the incredible, untapped sophistication of the human biocomputer. We are capable of so much more than we realize.
We really are. And it brings me right back to where we started this entire conversation, that universal, subconscious human instinct to rub our palms together when we are distressed, or to place our open hands on the chest of a loved one who is hurting.
That instinct was never just a behavioral quirk. It was the body's innate biological wisdom, reaching for the physical switch to turn on its most powerful, integrated healing technology.
So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your week, something we haven't explicitly discussed, but which builds on every single layer of biophysics and quantum mechanics we have uncovered today.
I love these final thoughts.
If our hands are naturally equipped, biologically, neurologically, and quantum mechanically, not just to build tools, type on keyboards, and grasp objects, but to actively emit and receive highly coherent quantum biological information, what does that mean for our everyday, mundane human interactions?
It completely changes the context of how we view human connection.
Think about it. What invisible, profound biological exchange is actually happening every single time you shake a stranger's hand in a meeting? What data is being transferred when you give a friend a high five? What resonant entanglement is occurring when you simply hold the hand of someone you love? Are you just touching dead skin cells, or are your tuning forks ringing together, sharing light, energy, and microscopic information across the palace of toil? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been a truly fascinating journey. Keep your feet grounded and your palms open.
Until next time, stay curious.